Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. Today, we're going to discuss about the human connection in the the customer service platform. Right? As businesses scale their customer service with AI, I think empathy is important. That's what we're going to focus how critical it is, the challenges that we'll discuss, and I think we'll also delve into how AI will augment human agents rather than replacing them or fostering meaningful interactions through intelligent sentiment analysis and kind of customer support. Uh, Today we have two amazing panelists. One, Anish Agarwal, who's the Vice President of AI and Automation at Warren Pro Discovery, and another panelist, Kiran. Kiran has experience in terms of 24 years of experience in banking and financial service. He is the Executive Director and Head of Future Ready Technologies at DBS Tech. Uh, Welcome to the panel. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, thanks, Prabhu. Thanks for the introduction.
Going with the main topic. I mean, see, in the AI world, I think the critical aspect of empathy is missing. Or do you think that we somewhere that empathy is coming along as technology progresses? So how do we kind of address this challenge beyond the buzzword that we talk about? Anish, do you want to take this?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Prabhu. So let me start everyone by asking something. Have you ever had one of those days where you are completely drained, emotionally exhausted, and just wanted something or someone to understand you without having to explain yourself? But for me, that moment was once salvaged not by a friend, not even by my dog, but by Netflix. I had a long day, draining day at work. I collapsed on the couch, fired up Netflix, and there it was on the homepage. Because you watched Netflix or because you watched The Pursuit of Happiness, we think you might like The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. And I remember thinking, wow, this thing gets me. That, my friends, was what I now lovingly call the Netflix hug. It was a moment where the algorithm didn't really just push content, it comforted me as well. But let's unpack that moment. Did Netflix actually understand my emotional state? Of course not. It did. It had no clue I was emotionally fried. What it did know was my viewing history, the time of the day, my tendency to rewatch inspiring content on tough days. And it used that to serve a choice that mimicked understanding. That's not empathy in the human sense. That's perceived empathy powered by a pattern recognition algorithm. Their distinction is important. Real empathy, the kind that truly connects people, requires emotional awareness, shared human experience, and a genuine desire to help. AI doesn't feel sorrow. It doesn't light up with joy at your success. It has no internal world, but it can be trained to recognize signals of emotional states and deliver responses that create the illusion of empathy. And to be honest, and sometimes that illusion is enough to create comfort. Let's bring this to the context of business world. Imagine a bank using AI to detect frustration in a customer's voice. Maybe the tone gets sharper. Maybe the customer starts using shorter sentences. Maybe they repeat themselves as well. Something that a lot of us may have experienced. Well, a well-designed AI could detect this and suggest softening the script or transferring the call or chat to a human. That's not emotional intelligence, that's emotional design. It's empathy in action, not empathy in essence. And this is where we draw a line between augmentation and artificial connection. Augmentation is using AI to help humans better express empathy. It's like having a digital co pilot nudging you, hey, this customer seemed upset. Slow down, listen more. But then there's an artificial connection when we try to replace a human entirely. It's when the chatbot named Olivia tells a grieving customer, I know how you feel. And the customer realizes Olivia doesn't have a heart or a pulse. Authenticity must lead the way, and people don't necessarily mind AI, but they despise being fooled by it. Well, I would say the moment you try to pass off synthetic emotions as real ones, you break the trust between humans and AI. So, yes, AI can deliver a version of empathy, in my view, one that's contextual, data informed, and scalable, but it's still a performance. And like all performances, it must be delivered with respect to the audience. Back to you, Prabhu.
I'll also have the opening remarks from Kiran, and then we'll take it forward from there.
Thanks, Prabhu. Thanks for having me. So, Anish has covered, has been quite comprehensive, but I'll add my views here. True empathy, I think, is understanding person's emotion and responding it with genuine care and compassion. I think that's the key definition of empathy. So, if you look at AI, we don't expect it to have and understand. We can expect AI to understand emotions and respond with genuine care, whether it feels the empathy or not. But it makes people feel that it is empathetic. I think that perceived empathy is the key area for any of the AI chatbots. So, from a banking perspective, if you see that AI chatbots have revolutionized the banking. So, from the use perspective, the over the last few years, right, the number of people using banks have been considerably increasing. So, having the traditional means of supporting them and doing customer service is not scalable. So, AI chatbots have come over and they are able to, initially when they started, they're able to do very medicore tasks like solving FAQ and all that stuff. But over a period of time, they're able to handle and much complex tasks and able to connect to the people in a more empathetic way. So there are two key areas in which when we design the chatbot, right, there are two key areas which we have focused on. One is ensuring we have contextual understanding. That is, when someone types something, we just don't want to say what he has asked, but rather than get a holistic view of what he is trying to understand. So, especially when we are designing our AI bots, right? First, what we do is we get the information. Along with it, we also try to get the intent. When the customer, suppose, logs in, as soon as he enters, the bot already has the understanding of how many accounts he has, what is his transaction history, what he has done in the past. When he reaches out, the AI bot has the context of what he has done in the last few days, or why he has logged in. So as soon as he enters something, instead of giving a one word reply, we are able to ask him more in detail, make him feel that the bot is able to understand what I'm looking for rather than just replying simple answers. So contextual understanding is the key area which we have emphasized. Next, of course, is the sentiment analysis. When we enter anything, when we enter any data, the bot is able to realize, as Anish also highlighted, short statements, the language which we are using, all these things we are able to analyze. And once we get the data, when we feel that the sentiment is getting into a negative area, then we are able to see, the bot is able to ask back, am I answering your question in the right way, or you want to go back and talk to a human agent? So these sort of things are already built in the bot to ensure that the human transfer is done more seamlessly rather than letting the customer go in a negative sentiment. So this is mainly from a perceived empathy per se. So next question I think you asked is about artificial connection and augmentation. So if you artificial connection, when you say that there are a lot of complex use cases also where we can achieve using artificial intelligence, we need not look at very simple use cases. Suppose something like a personal finance recommendation in banking. So from a scalability perspective, as soon as you log in into your mobile app, the bot will first ask you, can you just answer a few questions to tell me what is your risk appetite? As soon as we understand the risk appetite, the bot is able to recommend whether you want to go for a low risk profiles, low risk products, or high risk product, medium risk product, and start recommending you those sort of products. These are done without any human intervention, and the bot is able to recommend more and more, give personal advice to more people. With this model, it is a lot more scalable, and also we are able to connect to the people. So a lot of people look at these as a product and start looking at your bank as one of the go-to banks to go to. Next is, of course, one of the other use case for automated systems is automated loan processing application. We have seen a lot of places, right? Traditionally, if you look at 4 or 5 years back, when you go for a loan application, any simple personal loan or any loan, it would have taken many days. You have to give a lot of data, and the pre-processing used to take a lot of time. Now, AI-enabled bots are able to take the information connect all your historic data, get your credit rating, everything, get all the relevant information, and immediately is able to give you pre-qualification what is the level of data you can serve. So all these are automated systems without too much of support from any of the human, are able to progress, and a lot of complex use cases are able to take it forward and automate. But from an augmentation perspective, there are still some cases where human touch is required. So I'll look at some of the cases like grievances, where we suppose have a financial loss or some use case in which person has wrongly transaction didn't go through or sometime. At the time, if the bot comes up and we realize that the sentiment is not so good, at that time it is always better to transfer to a human. So these are sort of use cases where it is the bot will identify getting human into a loop is far more better than trying to get the bot. So one more such use case is dealing with vulnerable customers like elderly, disabled. So they want someone to spend time with them, understand and be empathetic with them more closer, listen to them. So in these sort of cases, having human in a loop is far better than just going for an end-to-end automation. So there are
Right.
some, so across the board, there are quite a few use cases, both the places, but more and more getting into automation will help the bank scale much better. Yeah. Over to
Right.
you.
Thank you for that, lengthy kind of broader overview that you gave. So
Yeah.
you spoke about the sentiment analysis, and you also spoke about the automated loan processing. I think one of
Yeah.
the readers was also pointing out, how do we kind of take away the bias that comes in, or the system doesn't misinterpret. For example, let me say, if I were to go over the counter and then convince the bank manager to give me loan based on my past, perhaps he would not be convinced. But if I were to say this is a future projection and then try to convince him saying that, look, I have so much of future records that might bring me business, he might be able to give me. Whereas the AI might just look at the data and then say your past record doesn't fit in or doesn't bode well. I might not give you that. So how do we address these challenges?
Okay, very fair point. So let me get into details. For a loan application, there is always history and always the future. There is always the collateral. There is always future. So what are the parameters? The richer the AI you make it, that more and more it can actually look at all the possible cases. As you explained, right? If a person has a bad credit history, that is one of the parameters. Maybe the weightage of it is quite high, but his current income, his projected income, all of them are also variables. So based on those variables, even if the bank person has to take a call, or even if the AI, the rules are well defined and the percentage of it is well defined, right, then we can always ask AI to provide further information. AI can always take the required information and say your credit score is less, so the LTV will be far lesser. Probably it is normally for a person who has a higher credit score, it can go up to 80%, but for a person with a lower credit score, the LTV will be much lower. It is around 40 to 50%, but the approval can go through so that the business can go through based on his collateral or his income proof. So if we define well enough and the AI is trained well enough, then probably all these use cases can also be considered. Probably. Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anish, I'll come to you on the trust factor. Now, generally, when the customer service interaction happens, if there is too much of the automated system that's interacting with the customer, perhaps they feel that I am not getting engaged in a empathetic way. So how do we build that trust, whether it is from a targeted group, whether it is the vulnerable customers like Kiran said? How do we ensure that the trust is driven over a period of longer time?
So, fair question, Prabhu. So, let me tell you a story about a friend of mine. Let's call him Prabhu for the moment, right? So, let's say, and he recently had to call his bank after noticing a suspicious charge. He prepared himself for the long hold music and frustrating transfers, as we all know, normally is the case. But instead, he was greeted by a very polished, almost too perfect assistant named Jamie. And Jamie was able to help. He was helpful, polite, surprisingly articulate. Prabhu explained the issue, got guidance, and hung up, feeling oddly satisfied. Amazing. Life at its best. But a few minutes later, something clicked. He realized he had just shared his entire concern with the bot. And the belief turned into unease. And he called me and told me, Anish, I felt like I'd vented to a toaster dressed in a suit. That's a trust paradox in a nutshell. The more human AI sounds, the more we start expecting it to behave like a human, with emotional presence, accountability, and ethical judgment. And when it inevitably fails to deliver that, we feel betrayed. The illusion backfires and it's like a wax figure winking at you. Now, it's not real, but for a moment, it makes each one of us very uncomfortable. Trust, unlike efficiency, is emotional capital. It builds slowly and breaks very quickly. And it is not just about AI and in the parlance of human relations as well. So when we create AI that impersonates humanity too closely without being transparent, we risk a massive breach of trust, especially in sensitive domains like healthcare, banking, legal advice, where emotional stakes are fairly high. So, what should businesses be doing? In my view, the first step should be transparent. If the customer is speaking with AI, tell them. Don't pretend it's a human. Respect their right to know. Step number two is design systems that can earn trust instead of faking humanity. A helpful, consistent, honest AI builds more trust than a manipulative one pretending to care. And last step, step number three, is blend, don't blur. Let AI handle transaction, high volume interactions, order tracking, FAQs, payment reminders, etc., etc. But create clear, easy paths to human agents for emotionally charged or complex situations. Think of it like a relay race. AI runs the first lap, humans finish the race with empathy and insight. And please, I would also want to talk about the names. I think companies should stop giving AI assistants names like Mary and John with glamorous headshots. It's not a dating app. If your bot can't survive a conversation without the meaning of life, it's not your friend, it's a tool. Let it be one. In the rush to automate, remember that trust isn't built through flawless execution, it's built through honest interaction. The moment our customers feels like they are being handled instead of heard, we've lost the game. Back to you.
Right. Yeah. So when you spoke about having different names, that might not sync with the customer, can AI get into this and then kind of customize to each individual customer and then kind of have the interaction in their own tone and language that perhaps the customer might perceive?
Absolutely. So this is where we can train our algorithms to be more fit from a sentiment analysis standpoint, and that's where we use text-based chatbots which have ability to analyze words, phrases, punctuations, and even emojis used by the customer. Negative keywords like frustrated, angry, disappointed, useless, aggressive language, or excessive use of exclamation points and negative emotions can indicate frustration. And for voice-based chatbots, an analysis of tone, pitch, speech rate, pauses, and even the loudness of the customer's voice can provide clues about their emotional rate. The intent recognition is the second aspect. While not directly indicating frustration, repeated attempts to convey the same issue, especially with different phrasing, can also help AI to detect and customize the response as well. Dialogue patterns is a third one. And I think last but not the least, it is also about the chatbot's ability to accurately detect frustration, where it can improve with with more interactions with more customers and receive feedback on its interactions.
Great. Thank you. I think I'll take the conversation to Kiran. Kiran, let's say if I'm interacting with a chatbot, the chatbot is able to understand me well based on the data that it has on me and the tone that in which I'm communicating. But what if it turns the other way around where I perceive the chatbot as robotic and it doesn't understand my emotions so well that probably if I give a pause, it doesn't apologize to me or there is a situation where it has to apologize. How do we address this?
Okay, AI for apology, if you look at it first, I look at, okay, so from an apology perspective, suppose AI is not able to understand what we are trying to say. I think that's what we are looking at here. So typically what happens is at the first statement, when someone issues any statement, anything, we'll try to understand the intent and come up with, say, is this what you're looking for? Then again, if you go back and then say, no, it keeps on telling different things, as Anish just said, but we are not able to understand the intent. Then I think the first way is the way to apologize or way to understand is first acknowledge, saying that the problem statement is probably not clear and I'm not able to understand it very clearly, and take ownership, probably handing it over to a human bot and doing it in a far more seamless way is what I would see an AI bot look at it. One more use case probably of AI being used for apology is in AI initiating a call itself. Suppose there is a use, there is something which happened when a customer reaches out to you saying that there is a problem in the system rather than something else, like incorrect transaction happened to me or something happened to me. Then first thing is how AI is reacting to it is also a problem. Rather than just saying that, okay, I'll take care and solve your problem. First, AI needs to acknowledge saying that, yeah, I see that there is a problem in the system. I see there is a wrong transaction posted in it, which should not have happened. And again, understanding the reason for it, if suppose there is an acknowledgement or if we already know the reason for this problem, probably giving the customer an understanding saying that, yeah, we acknowledge there's a technical issue which happened during this time, because of which this incorrect transaction happened, and we are addressing it, and I'm able to offer the solution saying that I have already initiated the reversal for you and able to get this solved in the next 1 or 2 days. So probably acknowledging the issue, taking the ownership, saying that yes, we have a problem and we are addressing it, offering a solution. All this in a very empathetic way is what I think the expectation of AI when you say from an apology perspective. And next page is, at any stage, if the customer feels that I'm not happy talking to an AI, I want to go back to a human, then always handoff should be there. And at the time of handoff to a human, right, we need to ensure that the entire context is transferred to the human, so that he doesn't start asking the same questions again and again. That will add to the frustration. So I think these are the steps which.
Prabhu, I like to chime in as well. And, when it comes to apologies, even humans already struggle. I mean, how many times have we heard, sorry, you feel that way instantly from a human as well? I don't think we say sorry much. And now imagine getting that from a chatbot that doesn't even feel anything. It's like being comforted by a microwave, which is warm, but lacking depth. So I would say AI does have a role to play here, but it's not about replacing human remorse. It's about recognizing when and how to apologize.
Right. I think I'll pick up one of the questions from I think the audience. Basundara is asking, what if something wrong happens with the chatbot, and how do we get that validated or invalidated? How can companies in India think about accountability? I think that's important, right? I mean, if the chatbot messes up, how do we place that accountability? I think, like Kiran said, human in the loop is always better. But when does that human jump into the AI system?
Okay, so to answer this question, right, and ensuring sentiment analysis, all this stuff, whenever there is any bot, anything going on, and if it says something any sense, when you see that uh, the reaction to the customer or sentiment analysis turning negative, it is a time when the bot automatically needs to ensure that human transfer needs to happen. That is one way of looking at it. And then, of course, taking ownership of the actions done by the bot is, of course, the role of any bank. If the bank suggests anything and because of it something happens, and the customer comes back and asks that, first of course, the bank or any institution needs to take ownership of that. That's one. And the next part is high intensity, high value, or high risk transactions. We need to ensure that bot doesn't take a unanimous call. I think that's one area we need to see that. If there is any high impact or high emotion stakeholder things happening, then the bot should recommend all the stuff, and the final handoff to the human needs to happen for a validation. I think these are the 2-3 cases we need to do. But if something goes wrong and the bot suggests something completely irrelevant, then probably we should be able to go back and acknowledge the mistake and then try to recover it, enhance the bot, of course, and also apologize to the person who has done that. I think it is possible, but I think before giving any high stakes thing, we need to ensure we double check and then go through the journey before releasing it. Yeah, that's
right. So understanding the whole chatbot, right? I think different companies might have different requirements. Some companies might think that, look, it's a great cost effort, so that we can focus and bring that AI chatbot. To the other, some company might think that, look, I am delivering better to the customer. So because there's so much of data that you can consume and understand, customer data better. Now, how do we balance that empathy, in this argument of bringing cost cutting and having a chatbot there?
Okay, you go ahead.
Yeah. I can take that. Yeah. So, Prabhu, for years, we treated empathy like parsley on a dinner plate. Nice to look, but not something we actually eat. Meanwhile, efficiency is the main course, but the world has changed. Today, empathy is becoming the entree. Let me take you back, and I can think about an experience I had with a hotel brand during a business trip. I arrived late at night, really grumpy, tired after three connecting flights. My room wasn't ready, but the front desk, powered by an AI assistant, had already flagged my mood and the tone from my app messages. When I walked in, they didn't ask my name. They said, Mr. Agarwal, I'm sorry about your travel delay. We've upgraded your room and ordered a warm meal for you. Boom. Now that's the AI driven empathy. The AI didn't try to give me a hug, but it enabled the human to deliver a moment of magic for me. Now, here's the kicker: I've stayed at that chain 8 more times since then. And that one act of anticipatory empathy based on the AI insights converted me into a loyalist for that brand. And if you run the math on repeat revenue versus acquisition cost, that's a net win for the business overall. And we often pit empathy against efficiency, but that's a false trade off. The most forward thinking organizations today are now realizing that empathetic design is efficient. And here's why: because when customers feel understood, they don't need to repeat their issues, they don't escalate problems, they forgive small mistakes, and of course, they come back as well. In my view, empathy builds trust, and trust builds loyalty, and loyalty builds revenue. So
Right.
that's my take on this.
So I think we've come far ahead in terms of how we have transitioned over the past decade, and particularly in the last 5 years post-COVID era, how kind of humans interact with chatbot. How do we see that for the next 5 years? Kiran, Anish, one of you, if you can, answer that. Where do we see from
Okay.
here?
The way the world is changing now, I think we can, whatever we think, it goes beyond that. That's what I would say. So first is from an empathy perspective, the models are going to be far more better right now. So more and more data, so we are able to understand people's feelings better, much better, and the models more and more end-to-end servicing we are able to do without human involvement, I think probably in the next 5 years. But beyond that, we are going to move more and more towards the edge, that is probably wearables or on the mobile, where when we are trying to do any transaction or anything, probably I'll just think of one example where when I'm trying to go and buy something, my app or my watch will say that probably this is going to bust your budget, so be careful when you're buying, something like that. So there are a lot of such use cases where at the edge, while we are taking a decision, the AI will be able to come up and then give financial recommendations. So all this stuff is one of the area which I can think of. One more area is more multi-models are going to come up. So right now most of the thing we are using is voice to text conversion probably, and text based stuff is what we are doing. So when we move towards future, more video based calls will happen, and we are able to get a lot more data, so we can understand the sentiment far better and able to give much more accurate empathetic thing is what we can. So couple of these use cases is what I can think of. Yeah, Anish, what do you?
Great point, Prabhu. And just two more from me to add. One is the ability of chatbots, AI enable interactive tools to anticipate needs, where these tools or platforms will become more proactive, anticipating user needs based on their past behavior, preferences, and real-time context. For instance, a travel chatbot can proactively offer changes in a flight based on the weather disruptions. I think the second is the hyper personalization, where interactions will be highly tailored to individual users, not customized to a generic group of users, with chatbots remembering preferences, past purchases, and even personal details, of course, with consent, to provide more relevant and efficient service.
Do we have use cases where, because of AI chatbot, something has failed, and there has been a transition where something has succeeded post that? Because if the customer felt it's too much of AI that's happening, and or the company built, rebuild something over it. So, do we have anything to talk about on those lines?
Honestly, not that I can think of. If a company did something like this, I'm not sure if it will be in public domain.
Right. In terms of, I think one of them, which we have already addressed, the bias aspect, right? What if it is, culturally inappropriate? How do we balance that? How does kind of AI handle those cultural balances across domains? And
Actually,
particularly with banking insurance, I think we look at it more carefully.
yeah. Actually, two things. First, whenever bias is there, I look at two ways where we can handle this. First is model bias, and of course, data bias. So these are the two things which are always, if you look at it, first we can handle model bias by training the model or testing the model, creating the output using one. model and then validating it using another model. So if you test it using couple of models, then we'll always reduce the model based bias. That's the way we check, using multiple models when we are creating, and then use one to develop and one to test. That's when we are flowing. And then database bias is area which is very critical, because if you take a very small area of data to train it, then it will be trained only for that specific thing, and then it will show bias. So comprehensiveness of the data for training is the key area. So if you handle these two areas right, then we can mitigate bias. But even if you look at a lot of very, prominent AI also have biases, where a lot of it is looking towards Western, where that is the data which is more used for training that. So when the designing the application itself, right, data for the application should be the key thing, and comprehensiveness of data is to be taken care. Yeah.
Right. I think I'll pick up another question from the viewers in terms of the cost saving and automation, right? How do we build that metrics? What is worth it? How much does a company will have to invest to build that empathetic relationship? Does it cost much to build that, or is it all data? It's like, yes, today LLMs can kind of have a chatbot in a much simpler cost. Where, I mean, coming to the cost aspect and empathy, how do we relate that?
Well, in my view, there could be several metrics, to be honest, when we look at the effectiveness of these chatbots, AI-enabled chatbots. Um, so, for example, reduction in customer service cost, cost per interaction, or cost per resolution, as an example. Now, a company can easily compare the cost of handling a customer interaction via chatbot versus a human agent via phone, email, or live chat as well. And chatbots typically have a significant lower cost per interaction, uh, when potentially falling even less than $1 is what I would say. The second is, of course, the agent hours saved, the number of hours saved of a human. Track the number of hours freed up by a chatbot handling routine inquiries. Multiply these by the average agent hourly wage to calculate the cost savings. And of course, reduce operational expenses, monitor overall reduction in support costs, including staffing, infra, overheads, chatbot implementation, etc., etc. I think last but not the least, what is most important is the overall cost of first contact resolution, or first time right, as we call it, or impact on cost. The higher first time right by the chatbot means less follow up interactions, better customer service response, better customer satisfaction ratings as well. And there could be a number of such metrics which can be used around this.
Just one more point which I'll add is, I think having a chatbot or this mode of customer servicing is not an option, but I think it is required right now. The scale at which the number of bank accounts are growing in India is almost 40x in the last 5-6 years, with all these accounts coming. So no human agent or call center or offline message will be able to solve any of these things. So I think the savings which we got because of introducing AI, of course, is mandatory, and that is already shown. And as I think in one of the earlier questions, Anish has already said, acquiring a customer is a lot more difficult than maintaining. So if suppose I send a saying that I lost my card, and you take 4 hours to resolve that, then already you have lost that customer. So with an AI enabled bot, if you immediately send a message, it will be locked instantaneously. So with that that level of customer service, right, we're able to retain our customers and continue to have a longer service. So the cost, probably the savings to that cannot be measured, but that's a lot higher than probably any of the dollar value which we save.
But I think I'll just take one step ahead. With the changes in the banking system, right? Perhaps over the last 2 decades, there's so much has happened that the interaction itself has reduced. I barely remember, probably in the last 5 years, I would have barely gone once or twice to the bank to interact with the manager. So with technology kind of fast pacing, I think we already see that reduced interaction, and going forward, perhaps that LLMs can better it, and then we might have less interaction. With UPI coming in at the click of a button, you have the banking system which you can probably enable different things. You don't even have to interact. So I mean, how do you foresee that in terms of the future banking system with AI in picture?
Well, just continuing from my previous point, I would say hyper personalization is the key. Where and this is a classical example which I always give is, our banks know much more about us versus what our better halves or partners or spouse would know. If a lot of us, or rather majority of us, do receive our bank statement every month via email, And unfortunately, a lot of us do not even attempt to open the bank statement because what really matters to us is the balance right on the top. If you ever take a chance or take a moment to look at the bank statement, on the right hand side, while you'll see the values, debits or credits, on the left hand side, you'll see each and every transaction. And if you were to interpret those transactions, you'll actually come to sense that your bank knows where you're eating, where you're shopping, where you're traveling, where which school is your child studying in, if you're using your bank's credit card or debit card to pay the school fee, perhaps everything. And think of it, if the banks were able to capitalize on this data and able to offer a granular personalized service to each and every customer, while knowing that Anish as a customer actually buys his grocery from a specific departmental store, shops for clothes or merchandise from a specific brand, always purchases, or makes travel bookings from a specific website. And there you go. I have a personalized offer for all these places where I shop from. That will be immensely, immensely powerful. Having said that, there is a very thin line which governs all of this, which is customer privacy or data privacy. Will I have consented the bank to use my data to train the algorithm and pass on a next best action, which of course may be good for me? I don't know. So that's where a balance will need to be maintained.
I
I'll,
think
I'll just
point
add.
on.
I'll just add here, Prabhu. Small thing. So, uh, one point we raised is there are two types of interactions we normally have with a banking personnel. One is for customer servicing. Another is more from a relationship manager perspective. Usually, for high net worth customers and corporates, we tend to have personalized relationship managers where banks expect more and more revenue for them, so they can give personalized service. But for retail customers with the larger base, banks cannot afford this sort of personalized relationship manager. So at the first step, right, from AI bot, we tend to service the customers only when they have a problem or answer their questions and all. But every person invariably wants to have a relationship manager who helps him advise how he wants to manage his finances, where should he spend, where is he going right, where is he going wrong. So all this stuff can be helped. More and more customers can come into the bracket, and the concept of relationship manager can be expanded. And even for a corporates who have lot of these personal one-to-one interactions, we have all these things can be moved into AI, where we can do a lot more service much faster, much easier. So the scope of it is we are only scratching the surface, where we are targeting the retail customers whose requirements are very straightforward and simple. So the more and more complex use cases where we go into high net worth customers, corporates, right, we can tend to get more and more complex use cases where AI can help and then improve the service quality, turnaround time much faster.
Right. And taking from Anish's point of hyper personalization, how do we ensure that the customer data is not kind of manipulated to kind of go back to him again and again, or in terms of exploiting the consumer behavior?
Again, I would say that there is a very thin line. So when you have so much data, you need to, along with his strengths, right, his weakness also. So when a person is reaching out to you for loan, that his credit score is low, he has a problem, or he has lost a job in the last 2-3 months. Him, so you can always twist his arm and ask him to go for a loan which is a lot more higher, or use bad practices. So having more information, again, the great statement is always that with great power comes great responsibility. So you should always understand that, saying that we need to ensure that with so much information we cannot resort to bad practices. Ensure ethical AI is always used. With all the information, we should only offer him the thing which they should be using, and we should understand their ability to take risk and all, and suggest him only the things which are suitable for them. I think that's what the banks need to see. That is one area where guardrails are very important. Ensure that whenever we are recommending something, it should be well within the purview and what is supposed to be offered to him only.
Yeah. I think Venugopal has a question here in terms of, see, when I spoke about the banking interaction being reduced, he's talking about the interaction perhaps is reduced for a different generation. Perhaps he feels that the older generation, it's still kind of dependent on that kind of empathetic and then personal connect. So how far are we in terms of bridging that gap? Perhaps not everybody I mean, today is kind of accessible in terms of mobile banking or internet banking. So how does AI play a role here in terms of addressing the older generation's requirement?
So I don't think there's it's the right thing to say there's a gap. I think it is largely about the user persona, the different types of customers. While yes, DBS is an exception, which is a truly digital bank. But if you look at the traditional brick and mortar banks, I at least haven't seen any bank which has gone completely digital. For reasons we still have a branch of each and every bank, and this is largely to address not just a specific set of customers, but within the banking parlance, and I'm sure Kiran will agree with me, there is a set of customers which are also understood as vulnerable customers. Customers who may have certain health ailments, who may have dementia, as an example, who are old, who do not have any support in terms of they're not living with their kids, etc., etc. So, and I'd worked with a bank for almost 8 years as a part of my career journey. And focus on vulnerable customers was of paramount importance because, and to be honest, and I also remember an instance where in that bank there used to be a customer who was somewhere around mid 70s, who used to walk in the branch every Saturday. He had no query. He just used to walk into the branch, say hello, spend some time, and go back. And when the branch manager asked him, "We see you coming every Saturday. Is everything okay?" And he said, "You know what? I have no one else to talk to. And I've been with the bank for almost 50 years. And hence I just come to say hello. It just helps me feel comfortable." So there is always an element of touch, a human connect, which a brick and mortar branch establishes. And I think it will be futile for banks to go completely digital while knowing that they have a certain customer base who may still want to value a human to human interaction.
Right. Thank you. I think Kiran, you're trying to make a point there.
Yeah. Very well said. So I know. I mean, I've seen a lot of people, elderly people, who, whenever there's an FD interest comes up, they want to visit the bank and then see, actually put the passbook and then print it and then see that the interest has come to the account. So even though they get a message, they have the balance. So they want to make go and then feel the bank, meet the people there. So nothing is. I mean, we are not here to take that away, but we are also enabling a lot of stuff where even the older people can be onboarded into all these new facilities. We always have branches for them to go back, but maybe a Gen Z person wants the banking to be available on the latest on WhatsApp or some stuff, but the older generation has some other way of understanding, and SMS is what they want to have. So for all the generations, we need to understand their needs, and then ensure they are onboarded into this digital world slowly but steadily, but ensure that that human touch is always there through call or physically, and ensure they can always go and use those channels also.
Thank you. I think taking forward from there, like one of the again users said, Geeta Bhargava was asking in terms of data privacy, how transparent should banks or customers? I mean, it should be with the customers. Now we are in the age of kind of clicking on "I agree." So now, how do we go beyond that and then build that trust and kind of transparency where banking probably advertises more that AI is being used in what domain?
Actually, there's two things. I'll just start. Anish, you can take it over from there. So first is collect only what is needed. That's the first rule. So whatever, because it's always easy that you give me all the data, you give me the entire thing, your ID card, your address proof, everything for whatever is required. So, but collect what is basically minimum required data. You collect it and use it only for the purpose you have collected. I think these are the two principles which are to be followed. So collect what is minimum required and use it only for the purpose you have collected, not for everything. Now that you have the information, don't use it for some other use case. Any other use case you want to use, you have to take the consent again. I think that's the principle we follow to ensure that minimum no data privacy leakage or no unauthorized usage. I think that's the key. I think Anish.
Yeah, and just to add, it's fairly simple. Be upfront and clear. Tell customers when you're using AI what data it uses and why. And we should also offer opt-outs where possible, explain AI decisions impacting them, because end of the day, transparency builds trust and meets privacy rules.
No, I think Venugopal, one of the viewers, had pointed out this earlier in terms of, with very little regulations, how do we kind of organization minimize this? While RBI has put out clear mandate in terms of using customer data, do you feel that the regulations are less in terms of monitoring the customer data, and then how do we use it?
So banks are the most regulated things. If you look at compared to any other industry, right, banks are the most regulated things. So if you look at DBS as a multi-country bank, right, we are aligned to each of the central government things for each of the countries. So when we follow any of the rules, we need to align to all these countries' boards. So we stick to, again, ethical practices are what is important. When you follow that, right, following the regulation should not be a problem. So I think each company needs to have its own
Great.
rules, to fit. Yeah.
So, delving on, I think we are almost near the end of the conversation. So let me bring one last point in terms of fixing the responsibility. Now, should AI-driven customer empathy be, who should own it? Should it be owned by the technology leaders? Should it be owned by the CXO level or the HR? And I mean, where do we fix that responsibility?
Well, it's a tricky question, to be honest. And, I would say it's largely about everyone wants empathy, but no one wants to own it. And it says the technology team will say, we built the model. The customer experience team will say, we talk to the customers. The HR says, we understand humans. And somewhere in the middle, empathy gets tossed around like a hot potato. But here's the reality. AI-driven empathy requires a new kind of ownership, which is shared but centralized, in my view. I believe in forming a cross-functional empathy council. Yes, maybe it may sound unique or weird, which is composed of product managers, data scientists, customer experience leads, behavioral experts, and maybe HR folks as well. And this group becomes a steward of emotional design and governance. They don't just approve models. They ask questions like, will this response feel human? Could this trigger unintended emotion? Does this reflect our brand values, which is most important? And this group should actually own empathy, not just in customer journeys, but in deploying bots, internal comms, and even L&D platforms. Ultimately, empathy is not only one individual's job, but someone needs to hold the entire blueprint from an end-to-end perspective.
Great. Thank you, Anish. Yeah,
Yeah,
Kiran.
I would concur with Anish. I think no one person can take it, but I think each area that specific person need to own. So when we look at technology leaders, they need to ensure algorithmic fairness. So whether no bias in that. So that is to be owned by technology leaders. When it comes to CXO heads, ensuring that more data of all the areas should be covered. The design should be user centric. That so the design person needs to own that. HR needs to ensure that any impact of it or any employee well-being and all that stuff. So each person has their own role in that. They have to ensure they take their role seriously and ensure they implement that in that area. And a centralized council, as suggested by Anish, will also help. But each person needs to own their part of it.
Great. I think we've had a wonderful discussion in terms of addressing the kind of users' comments as well. So let's have closing remarks from each of you in terms of building that empathy. Like some people wanted, how do we address? I think Kiran, you said like there has to be a human in the loop, irrespective of how the process is. And two, addressing to a particular generation. Like if my customer data, I mean, know that there is a particular set of generation or age group that is there. Perhaps we need to cater it differently. So now, how do we play around with this? I mean, each bank might have a different set of data, and it might not be a one fit solution as such. So let's have a closing remark in terms of how do we play with AI and empathy, and looking at future of how LLMs are going to shape our conversations in the banking system.
Whether we all like it or not, AI is going to scale up very fast in the next 5 years. So it is better for us to ensure that when we go out and adopt the AI, right, we build it more empathetic and ensure we scale to all the type of customers. And as I told you, from a futuristic perspective, right, we need to go more closer to the edge, ensure that we service them much faster. That's the areas which I feel is what is the future of AI. And everyone needs to, I mean, whether we like it or not, we are going to adopt it, and it is part of our lives already. So I think we all need to adopt more and follow ethical practices. I think that's what we should do.
And for me, empathy isn't about replacing the human touch with robotic warmth. Well, it's about using technology to amplify what makes us human, our ability to understand, to adapt, to connect. And in an era where experiences are becoming more automated by the minute, it's the brands and businesses that stay deeply human in design, in delivery, and in intent that will stand out, that will make a difference. Let's use AI not just to solve problems, but to anticipate needs as well. Not just to optimize journeys, but maybe just to create moments of care, not just to measure sentiments, but to earn trust. One empathetic interaction at a time can make a lot of difference.
Right. Probably one last word I'll have in terms of how differently it's done at DBS. If you can explain, from the futuristic point, I think that'd be great.
Okay, we have discussed considerably. So DBS has quite a few use cases as we discussed, right? So from that perspective, we have already have quite a few cases where we are able to do end-to-end journey using AI. So we are looking at more and more use cases where we are able to have an empathetic interaction with it and service more and more customers through our AI bots. So going forward, we are looking at keeping human in loop whenever required, but enabling AI in such a way that people are more perceived AI. We are going to continue to work on it and get more and more people to adopt AI based chatbots, and should we service them much better. I think that's the area.
Great. Thanks, Kiran. Thanks, Anisha. I think we've had a wonderful discussion. I think we've addressed most of the queries from the customers. So that's all from our end. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prabhu, for inviting for this conversation. Thoroughly enjoyed. Thank you for all the questions to the attendees. These are great questions, making the conversation more engaging.